Hi, like Sean said, my name's McCabe and I'm based here on the Arts Strand in the Houston School. So I'm going to be talking a bit about what I'm interested in, which is how digital media affects storytelling and how education can kind of respond to that. So prior to print, writing mainly served as an aid to the oral world, and because of the uniqueness of the hand and very varied abbreviations, generally meaning would be memorized once it was deciphered because it was just easier. So reading aloud kind of aided this process and was the norm even when alone, but reading was primarily a social experience, so generally one person would read aloud to a group, generating discussion and debate around the text in question. So print changed all this, and printed books were just a lot easier to read and they were smaller, so the legibility and the portability meant that silent reading became the norm and a much more solitary form of experience. So this began to influence the way we lived, and we needed larger homes and more space, more rooms where we could be alone, which is now kind of deemed necessary for deep thinking and becoming lost in a text. And because of this, new notions of privacy began to form. And at the same time, new trade paths were opening. A variety of other factors saw a move away from a kind of strict hierarchical system towards a money-based economy, and this all added to a kind of a new sense of individualism. So as a result, new narrative styles began to emerge. And in a preprint world, preservation was paramount, and this kind of necessitated a very precise, descriptive form of storytelling, which is heavily driven by cause and effect action, yeah. And but the internal nature of print, and plus the fact that preservation wasn't as essential anymore, meant that diffuse concepts such as character and atmosphere were used to convey meaning more. So characters became more than just names and developed like their own psyche, and they weren't just secondary to action but could be beings before they even did anything, and more stories began to explore the landscape of consciousness itself. So the growth of digital technology invites us to ask the question of what the consequences are for storytelling and how does it inform story structure and our notions of what a story should be. And the growth of digital technology has resulted in what theorists such as Donna Haraway and Castells have termed the network society, and a kind of a social discourse that's more concerned with connections than isolated essential components. So again, notions of solitude and social interaction are in transition, and whereas previously kind of private and public lives were easily defined and separated, now the boundaries sort of less defined. And the ubiquity of digital technology, the growth of the home work economy, as well as surveillance technologies have rendered categories by which we've sort of traditionally segmented our lives less distinct. And more and more you see kind of like psychologically and contextually disparate experiences such as home, work and shopping and school becoming more and more homogenized. And at the same time, kind of traditional demographic categories are becoming less kind of relevant, and because users' genuine interests and behavior are more easily tracked online, so than kind of arguably constructed or even stereotypical groupings such as these. But then at the same time, attempts to meet kind of perceived needs and desires can leave us sort of vulnerable to intellectual isolation, and it's kind of Eli Parzer's idea of the filter bubble. So if we accept society is shaped by technological change, and then this is in turn reflected in our stories, the more our narratives embody these changes, the more they become embedded in social consciousness. And I want to kind of know, what does this mean for learning? So if we accept that culture is fluid, and how are these changes being addressed in education, and does this kind of reflect the network society, and if perceptions and notions of narrative have changed, do we need to change the way we engage with them in an educational context? So is there a better way to respond to the cultural consciousness and contemporary societal structures, and can this aid analytical and active engagement with narrative text in an effective and practical manner? So is there a way that digital technology itself could embody this change, and how would this manifest? So these are kind of the main questions that I'm trying to address in my research.